Affordability in Denver could come with a higher price tag.
This will not be the highest tax rate in the state. We think we're still very competitive with the region.
Denver's mayor wants voters to increase the sales tax to pay for housing. More firefighters and police officers are needed in Denver, so the city may turn to non-citizens to fill vacancies. The trucking company involved in a deadly crash ignored basic safety protocols, according to a scathing report that outlines a history of problems. The ethics committee looking into a state senator who appeared to be drunk at a public meeting votes that she broke the rules. And our new favorite soap opera returns with another dramatic cliffhanger next. Let's start with trivia today. What is not as big as Seattle's, smaller than Minneapolis, and already bigger than Cleveland's? Denver's sales tax. Purchases in Denver come with an 8.81% sales tax, not as big as Seattle's, smaller than Minneapolis, and already bigger than Cleveland. Denver could move up a spot on that list with several ballot issues seeking to increase the city sales tax, including a new proposal announced this morning.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
The people standing with Denver Mayor Mike Johnston already support a plan he has yet to publicly announce.
Thank you to all the amazing friends and community leaders we have gathered here.
That plan, which he announced this morning, is to ask voters to raise the city sales tax to be spent on affordable housing.
So the goal is that this allows us to build or to bring on 44,000 additional units, which is what the estimate is of the total gap we have to fill over the next 10 years.
The city sales tax would increase 0.5%, adding 5 cents to a $10 purchase. The mayor's office estimates that would bring in $100 million a year.
Potentially a $2 a week impact on families, for the ability for a teacher or a nurse or a public servant to take up to $1,000 off their monthly rental charge. That is the way you make the math of this city function for the folks that are trying to work here and live here.
Denver's combined sales tax rate is 8.81%. It is not the highest in the state. Winter Park has that distinction at 11.2%. Within the metro area, Commerce City is the highest at 9.25%. Highlands Ranch residents only pay 5% sales tax. If this ends up on the ballot and voters say yes, Denver's sales tax rate would climb to 9.31%. And don't forget, Denver Health is already on the ballot with a 0.34% sales tax increase to help the hospital pay for uncompensated care. If voters approved both, Denver's sales tax would be 9.65%. At what sales tax rate would you personally stop buying goods in Denver and go to a different city to do that?
Yeah, we've looked at the impact on sales tax because that's important.
After pointing out that about 1/3 of Denver sales tax is paid by non-residents visiting and working in the city, I asked again, what sales tax rate is too high for the mayor to buy goods?
This is not a rate at which I believe I would or anyone else will stop buying goods.
Certainly not those who stood with the mayor to show support for a proposal that first needs to get through city council before voters can see it in November.
So thank you all so much.
Affordable housing already has a fund. In 2016, council increased property taxes about $12 a year on a $300,000 home. Council also added a fee for developers. In 2020, voters approved a sales tax increase to assist those experiencing homelessness, which is different than affordable housing. That sales tax increase was approved by 63% of voters, and the increase was half as much as what voters may be asked in November. The federal government has ordered a trucking company to stop operating after a crash that killed a man on Highway 285 in Jefferson County last month. 9 News investigates learned that company stayed in business for years while ignoring trucking rules. A report by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration called the trucking company, Monique Trucking, an imminent hazard. The report said the company did not test drivers for drugs and alcohol, allowed drivers to operate semis without a valid license, and had a habit of not tying down some of their heavy loads. All of that appears to be relevant because of a crash on Highway 285 last month that killed 64-year-old Scott Miller. Colorado State Patrol reports the driver of the Monique Trucking semi did not have a valid license, and the heavy pipes he was hauling that day went everywhere when he lost control of the semi. The findings of the federal report shocked one of the leading truck safety advocates.
Our government, who claims that safety is their top priority, literally allows anyone to start a business without knowing if they know the first thing about putting someone behind the wheel.
That scathing report also said the company had no semblance of a safety management plan and no way of monitoring if drivers drove beyond service limits. A state lawmaker who appeared to be drunk at a public meeting earlier this year violated state Senate ethics rules. Democratic State Senator Faith Winter learned of that decision today from a committee of 5 of her colleagues. That committee, though, did not recommend to censure or expel her from the state Senate. Winter appeared intoxicated at a public event in North Glen in early April. That panel reviewed body cam videos showing her interactions with North Glen's police chief. She was slurring her words. The next day, she announced she was seeking treatment for substance abuse. The ethics panel voted 4-1 today that she violated legislative conduct rules. Winter admitted to having a drink before going into the meeting because she expected it to be an emotionally charged meeting. The committee invited Winter to speak to the full Senate when the legislature starts next year. It also recommended that the Senate president send her a letter of admonishment. Mondays are when soap opera cliffhangers from the previous week start to get resolved. You're supposed to build to the end of the week before you get to the next cliffhanger, but that is not the format that the Colorado Republican Party takes in the most recent episode of I Talk Too Fast as the Colorado GOP turns. When we last left the Colorado GOP, Todd Watkins, the vice chair of the El Paso County Republicans, was still waiting to have a meeting to try to oust party chairman Dave Williams. The Colorado GOP scheduled a meeting on July 19th in a park in Bayfield in far southwest Colorado, a meeting that will start and be immediately recessed until August. Today, Watkins sent out an email announcing a special meeting to hold a vote to remove Williams as chair of the party. He scheduled that meeting later this month at a church in Brighton. Well, the last time Watkins held a meeting at a church was last week, outside a church in lawn chairs, when he got the El Paso County Republican Executive Committee to censure their chairwoman, Vicki Tompkins. Tompkins called that a fake meeting. Now Watkins is accused of more fakery. Colorado GOP Vice Chair Hope Scheppelman responded to Watkins' email calling it a fraudulent notice and an illegal meeting. She wrote that party attorneys will be taking this to court. Will a judge end the Republican-on-Republican infighting? Will Watkins' meeting at a church in Brighton really happen? And if it does, will it be in lawn chairs again? Stay tuned as the Colorado GOP turns. Colorado's new law limiting where people can carry guns in so-called sensitive spaces has only been in place for a week. Several cities have opted out already, and today it will be Colorado's third largest city discussing it. Aurora City Council will debate opting out of the state law during its study session tonight. State law now allows guns in places like state law prevents guns in places like the state capitol, courthouses, college campuses, voting centers, local government buildings. Aurora City Council will not vote on this tonight. They'll just discuss it. Local governments can override the restriction, and we've already seen several municipalities do so, including Castle Rock, Monument, Douglas County, and Routt County. Just about 1 in 4 voters participated in the June primary last month, and there is one area of the state where your vote really mattered. The 2 Republican candidates for House District 58 are separated by 3 votes. District 58 covers a good chunk of rural southwest Colorado and towns like Montrose, Telluride, Gunnison, and Crested Butte. Larry Don Suckla got 6,487 votes to J. Mark Rober's 6,484 votes. That's 3 votes, well within the margin for an automatic runoff. Suckla is a former Montezuma County Commissioner. Rober is a former Delta County Commissioner. The Colorado Secretary of State's office will confirm the winner after the recount. Whoever wins, though, still needs to win the general election in November. Your latest round of generosity will help Latinas who've survived domestic violence. Kyle is out of the newsroom and wanted to give a quick thank you on the latest Word of Thanks campaign.
Thanks for being with Next while I'm away, and thank you for your generous support of Una Mano, Una Esperanza as they work to help Latinas in the Denver metro area work through the criminal justice system after they've been survivors of domestic violence. If you know of a nonprofit in Colorado that could benefit from your generosity, approaching $13 million worth, email me, next@9news.com, so I can learn more about what that nonprofit does in your corner of Colorado.
Not everyone who lives in Denver can be a firefighter or police officer. The city, though, could soon lift restrictions for some. And boy, that break from the heat was nice, but it will not last. We're in for a possible historic heat surge this week. Ugh.
Me and my wife been looking at it, wondering what's going on over there.
For months, neighbors have called the city for help with an eyesore. The city seemed to ignore those complaints until we asked about it today. More ballot talk. 2 Denver City Council members hope to ask voters in November to pass a new ballot measure that will allow DACA recipients to become police officers and firefighters. Those council members say the city charter currently does not allow it, so they need to take it to the ballot to change the charter. Here's our Angeline McCall.
In Denver, if you want to be a police officer or firefighter, you need to be a U.S. citizen.
We've definitely heard that story, that folks feel like they come up against a brick wall, right, as they open the application where it asks, are you a U.S. citizen? And if not, they have to go look elsewhere.
Council President Jamie Torres and Pro Tem President Amanda Sandoval are co-sponsoring a bill that would allow DACA recipients to become police officers and firefighters.
And in 2016, the Department of Justice investigated the Denver Sheriff's Department on this requirement of having U.S. citizenship and found that it was employment discrimination.
Now they're hoping to change that and open up the options for people who can already serve in the military.
We have lawful permanent residents and DACA recipients who've spent decades living in Denver and in our surrounding communities, and this is absolutely a service job that they want to do.
Because it would change the city's charter, Council needs to approve the ballot measure, then ask voters for a yes in November.
As we're starting to see recruitment numbers dwindle for both of our police and fire departments, it doesn't make any sense for us to leave people out of the conversation who actively want those jobs.
Right now, municipalities like Aurora and Boulder allow DACA recipients for both roles. This is a chance, they say, for Denver to catch up.
And I believe that once people learn about the initiative and why, the why is really important of why we're doing this right now, I do believe that the voters will pass it in November.
The measure has the support of a number of immigrant rights groups, Denver Fire and Police, plus the Civil Service Commission that oversees the hiring for both the police and fire department. And just to clarify, this is only for those who have work authorization through DACA. So this is not for newly arriving migrants or immigrants. Today, Council approved this for a second reading next week.
DACA is a federal thing, and now we've seen several local decisions. The state last year, it was last year, I believe, that helps build onto this. So what happened that helped lead to this?
Yeah, so there was a bill last year in the state legislature that ultimately was passed that allowed DACA recipients to possess guns and use guns if they are in law enforcement. Now, a DACA recipient that's not in law enforcement cannot possess a gun. That's a federal rule, and so that kind of paved the way for municipalities to sort of look at these and provide more options.
I want to point out there's a lot of ballot talk today, but it's because there's timelines that have to be met for things to show up on the ballot, and I think that timeline is like next month, so that's why we're talking so much about the election now.
Yeah, it's like kind of the ticking clock to get things on the ballot, so a lot of ballot talk until then.
Thank you, Angeline. I've made my position on the heat clear. Kathy knows it all too well. It's too much. So with temps perhaps hitting 100 for 3 straight days this weekend, something that's only been done 6 times before here, let's do some mind games. Please email me at next@9news.com. Give me some song titles to get us thinking cool thoughts. Something cold, chill, ice. Never mind.
I thought you were going to start rapping for a minute. I'm like, let's go.
I could try. It's not gonna, I mean, I'm cool today. This studio is actually cool today.
Dude, you are always cool.
I think.
Working with Marshall on a Monday. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog.
Okay, so then if I use the reference, the dog days of summer are here, you're okay with that?
Yeah, what would your cat reference be?
Oh, I need to think about that. Maybe viewers could help us with that one as well. All right, well, Marshall, today is the coolest day of the week. Sunshine, 82 degrees in Denver. Now we just popped up to 83. The average high is 90, and we're headed that direction tomorrow. We're tracking a couple of storms down to the south, but really the big story is the heat wave that's coming. 3 days with triple-digit highs and record high temperatures possible, and really just a nice day for eastern Colorado. Each day, the numbers are going to start ramping up, and the wind will start increasing as well. Not going to scour out the ozone and the poor air. We've got an ozone action alert day today and tomorrow for poor air quality. Thunderstorms to the south, producing wind and lightning along the Colorado-New Mexico line. A little bit of hail down that way, but these storms will be moving out within the hour. And so that's really kind of going to be the trend for us. The severe weather will be right around the remnants of Hurricane Beryl, what was Hurricane Beryl, tomorrow in the St. Louis area. So our thunderstorm chances for rain to cool us, not looking all that great. So a pleasant evening tonight. Marshall, we go into the low 90s Tuesday and Wednesday, mid 90s Thursday, and then here we go. Triple-digit highs for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we could see a record each day heading into the weekend. So sorry about that. I know it's not your fave.
Scary. I don't know what's in it. I don't know if somebody's living in there.
I know this one all too well, actually. Abandoned cars are getting left in Denver, and people turning to the city for help are not getting it quickly. And the most Colorado thing we saw today is the Colorado version of perhaps the Fast and the Furious 7, I don't, Fast and Furious 5, 4. Suncor just keeps suncoring. The feds are investigating the state's largest polluter for once again releasing too much pollution in the air. The EPA and state health department have issued a NOV, notice of violation. It accuses the company of failing to follow air emissions laws and emitting too many air pollutants like benzene. This is just the first step. Next, the EPA could consider some type of punishment. Suncor has already been in trouble this year. They agreed to pay $10.5 million in a settlement over previous violations. It's a sign that Denver still has not quite figured out what to do with abandoned cars. We first talked about this in December when neighbors near Sloan Lake turned an eyesore into an ornament. A car had been sitting there for months. They finally got the city's attention when they decorated it for Christmas, complete with tinsel, stockings, and lights. Well, the problem with abandoned cars persists. Neighbors in northwest Denver have been complaining for months about an abandoned car that has been sitting in an alley off 52nd and Pecos. A small forest has formed around the truck, a sign of just how long it's been there. Norma and her husband have been asking Denver's 311 for help.
They never responded. I gave them the description of the vehicle. I gave them the license plate number. My neighbors have been calling. So that's the garage. So you can't see it because there's so many weeds. And we've been trying to get I'm trying to get somebody out here to cut the weeds, but I can't with this thing in the way.
The city finally towed the truck away after Steve Stager started calling today. Call Steve, get action. They moved it, though, to a nearby street parking spot. Perhaps another forest will build around it then. They'll refer the case to the Denver Sheriff's Department as an abandoned car. 311 says it received more than 100 reports of abandoned cars in the city last year. The most Colorado thing we saw today was a Subaru putting the pedal to the metal. And do we get song titles, Marilyn? Song titles to cool us off next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is the Fast and the Furious Colorado Drift, Part 29. Lauren Grant shared this highly anticipated race at Colorado National Speedway this weekend. A Subaru raced against an Audi. If you're thinking Subarus don't belong on the racetrack, you're probably right, and you can see why there. It started promising, but the Subaru had the lead, was able to block the Audi until the final turn spun out. The Audi snuck by, and the Subaru is just going to be Colorado Drift another day. If you've got something Colorado-y to share, email it to next@9news.com. I'm going to start with some double feedback. I lost the name. Ross, I think it is. The double feedback is, what do you call a cat reference instead of the dog reference for what I was talking about with Kathy? He says cat on a hot tin roof. So did several other people. Cool Water by Marty Robbins, says Dave, for a song. Adam suggests Jingle Bells, Dashing Through the Snow. And my favorite, Chilly Water by Widespread Panic, and my favorite after that, Summer Breeze. I'll be thinking and singing that until I see you next time.